Well, good morning, everyone. We'll get started with today's class. Right. So, till the previous lecture, what we have covered so far in this particular course is we first started off with the device. We tried to understand the device behavior, and then we moved over to being able to understand how current mirrors work. We looked at the different elements in a PDK, how things are in a chip. We looked at design of current mirrors, analysis and design. Then we went into all the basic amplifier stages. We looked at different versions or different ways in which a common source can be implemented. And then we looked at common gate. We looked at common drain. Now in today's class, we will look at a couple of cascode architectures, and you will see that there is a lot of similarity in things that we have already seen. For example, a cascode amplifier will be quite similar. I mean, some of the things will be similar to that of a cascode current mirror. Okay. So, for example, the output impedance and so on. And we'll also look at what is called as a folded cascode, what happens in that one. And then we'll get started with differential amplifiers. Now, the moment we start with differential amplifiers and understand how they are, we will start looking at basically op amps. How do you design op amps, and how do you analyze them? How do you design them? Now, so far, when we talked about all the basic amplifier stages, we looked at the analysis of it. If you take any particular amplifier stage, we looked at how to analyze what is the input impedance, what is the output impedance, where do you kind of bias it, what is the bandwidth, what is the signal swing limits, what is the noise, what are the trade-offs that are involved there. All these things we looked at for each of the stages. So we have covered what is called as the analysis. Now, the other side is basically to do a design. So what I will do today is basically I will give you a design exercise, which will also be counted towards your final, internal marks rather. So basically it will be a simple common source amplifier design, and you will be required to design for a certain amount of gain. Now, in order to be able to effectively design, now things like using the mu n cox w vth and all those things will not really work, right? I kept reiterating in the class that those parameters which we use, which are typically used in textbooks, especially mu n cox and vth and all these things, they are a very complex function of so many different things in the transistor. For example, things will change based on the current density. Things will change, of course, with the body effect, and so many different parameters. You have the velocity saturation effect coming in, and so you cannot design using those classical equations. Which is why, if you look at the analysis that we have done so far, we looked at a lot. I mean, all of it was in terms of what GM or R naught or some resistances or GMB. It was all in these secondary parameters that we were doing our design, okay, or in terms of ID or even W by L ratio. Okay. So what is important to understand is that all your design should kind of be done using these secondary parameters like GM, R naught, and so on. Okay. And in order to do design, I want all of you, this is something that you have already done as part of your earlier assignments, which is to generate a ID versus VGS curve, right? And also GM versus VGS curve. Now, what I want you to do is to kind of save it as a CSV file or an Excel file, so that you have something which looks like this, like you have VGS and you have ID and you have GM. Okay. Now, prepare this for some arbitrary value, maybe some W equal to 1 micron and L equal to some value, I mean 0.18 micron, something like that. And save this in your computer, okay? So that you can use it as a reference. So for example, let me just take a very simple design problem. Let's say I'm going to design for a gain of, this is a common source amplifier. Let's say this is V in, V out, and let's say this is VB. Let us, assume how to take this VB. So let's M1, M2. Let me also say that, you have an IREF which is given at 10 microampere. Okay. Now, if I say my gain needs to be, 10 volt per volt. Okay. Or so basically, what is your gain? Your gain is basically GM1 R01 parallel to R02. Now you have already, so basically when you have a design, I always mention there is no one correct way to do design. All right. In fact, if you look at a lot of textbooks, many textbooks do not teach you how to design, or rather, many of their designs will be based on mu and Cox and so on, which is not practically feasible. So if you go to an industry and you start trying to extract mu and Cox, they will literally laugh at you. Okay, nobody does mu and Cox design. Okay, so everybody, so because the behavior of the transistor is so complicated, we do what is called as a lookup table type design. Okay, what do I mean by a lookup table type design? Basically, you kind of generate a table like this or a plot like this, whichever you're comfortable with, right? And then you try to use this table as a lookup table, and then you decide your values. Okay, so let me just take one example. I'll just do it in pen and paper here, but I would like you to actually do it with the actual numbers that you are getting. Okay, now the gain, there might be different specifications that are given. All right, the specifications, of course, first is gain. It can be bandwidth for a given CL, or it can be UGF for a gain bandwidth product for a given CL, right? Or it can also be signal swing limits, output signal swing, and things can also be power. Power is another major thing. You may be given a certain power budget and you may have to design, or you may be given some noise specification, input referred noise to be less than a certain amount. Now, all these are different specifications that are given, right? You typically will not be given all these 6. Okay, you might be, for example, given a specification saying that you need a gain of 10 volt per volt, and your max power should be, let us say, 0.3 milliwatt. Okay, now what do you, and of course VDD is fixed. So if your max power is, let's say, 0.3 milliwatt, what is the current that you can have here? So I max is going to be 0.3 milliwatt divided by 1.8 volt. This is what is the maximum current that you can draw from the supply. Now this power or this current includes even your biasing schemes and so on. Okay. So for example, if it's 0.3 milliwatt divided by 1.8, how much do you get? You get around 167 microamperes of current. Okay, this is the max current. So now this max current will also include, for example, if you have this 10 microamp source, you put a current mirror here, and you again have to mirror it. So here, let's say you're taking 10 microamp, right? Let's use a different. So this is 10 microamp. This is 10 microamp. So if this is 20 microamp, what is the current that you have for your actual amplifier? You have 167 minus 20, which is 147 microamp as your max current. Okay. So you might go and say, okay, my ID is taken to be some 140 microamp, because these are all inequalities. Usually, your gain, everything will be an inequality. Gain should be greater than or equal to 10 volt per volt. ID should be less than or equal to this much. All these things will be typically inequalities. Okay. So if you are, let me just take this as the example. How will you design? Okay. So first of all, what I have done here is, because I have 10 microamp, I have done a power budget now. And with my power budget, I have said that the current through M1 and M2 is going to be only 140 microampere. Okay. Now, another thing in this particular common source amplifier will also be the input bias, input DC voltage, okay, or input bias DC voltage. Okay. Now, for example, if my input DC is a certain level, right? Let's say in this case, I am taking my input DC to be, let's say, 0.7 volt, okay, or 0.6 volt. For example, let me just take 0.6 volt, okay. Now, what will I need to do? First of all, I have my current, I have my input DC, okay. I can go and find out my W by L ratio of M1, right? Now, now again here what happens is that in design you never go and hit it correctly at the first shot, right? So because now your gain is basically GM1 times R01 parallel to R02 is, let's say, equal to 10, right? Now this 10 has to be split between these two factors, okay? Now, for example, you can say I am having 2 millisiemens multiplied by 5 kilo ohm giving me 10, or it can also be 1 millisiemens multiplied by 10 kilo ohm giving me 10, or it can be 0.5 millisiemens multiplied by 20 kilo ohm giving me 10, right? You can have very many different combinations. Now, which combination you will choose depends on the other constraints. In this case, you're having a power budget. So for 140 microamp of current, what is the transconductance that you would get? So you have to go back to this table, okay? Look at the GM, look at the ID and so on, right? And then you have to basically, or sometimes, your input DC may not be given. So in that case, you have the freedom to choose, whatever bias point you have, right? And the rest has to come from your R0. Okay. So for example, I'm going to,
So in the previous slide,
yeah.
So you got ID is equal to 140, but in the figure you made it 147. Where is the 7 microamp?
Okay, that's so what I said was, see, this is the max power budget. Okay. I don't have to be always at the max power. Correct.
Okay,
so if you take the max power, you spend 10 here and 10 here, and you max power is 147 microampere through the actual amplifier, right? But I can be lower than the max value. So I am just arbitrarily choosing 140 microamp. Okay.
Okay.
You can also go and choose 100 microamp. That is also fine.
Okay.
Right. Now here, if you see, GM and R0. So GM can be written as what? Like you can write it as 2ID by VGS minus VTH. Okay. And R0 can be written as what? 1 over lambda ID. Okay. Now, typically you will find out, although these equalities may not be true, GM R01 parallel to R02 will typically turn out to be 1 over this quantity. Okay. So if you do not have this particular constraint, you can go and do that. Or else the other thing that you can do is basically to reduce your current. Okay. So for example, now I'm not taking the input DC point. Okay. If I'm not taking the input DC point, what will you get? So basically you can go and select a certain VGS value. Now here you've done the simulation for 1 micrometer. Okay. Now, for example, if the entry is going to be like this, for example, let's say 0.6, it's having some, 30 microampere of current and some 15 millisiemens of GM. Now, what will you do? If you want a GM, for example, if I'm going to choose this combination, now I have to increase that appropriately. So 0.5 into 2 is 3, 0.5 into 3 is 0.45. So maybe what I will do is I will take W to be equal to 3 micrometer by 1 and L is equal to 0.18 micrometer. Now this will give me a GM of 0.45 millisiemens because the scaling will all happen correctly. Okay, although the mu and Cox equation doesn't happen correctly, if you double the W by L ratio, you will get double the current. You will get double the GM if other things are all kept constant. Okay, so what I would do is if I'm going to make 3 times my W by L, I will get a GM of 0.45 millisiemens. Okay, and what will be the current? My current will be now 90 microampere. Correct. So now what I can do is with this first cut design, so this is my W1 L1. My ID is going to be 90 microampere only. So my M1 is designed. I need to go and design my M2. Now how will I design my M2? So basically, let us say you design this current mirror, you take some widths and lengths, right? So you can maybe start with some arbitrary width and length. Only thing is if you make the W by L ratio small, so how will you design this current mirror, right? You've already designed it earlier, but let's say this 10 microampere is flowing like this. Now, if you take the W by L ratio of this to be very small, what will happen? The VGS required for this transistor will be very high. Okay, and vice versa. Now again, you have to think about area, you have to think about, signal swing and so on, right? Now, let us say you take a very small W by L ratio. Now, what will happen? You have a large VGS. Large VGS is really not a problem for, let's say, this is M3, this is M4. M4 also, it's really not a problem. But then when you come to this point, what happens? This M5 W by L ratio has to be, let us say, for example, this W by L ratio is also chosen to be some 2 or 3. Okay. And let us say you are having a VSG, which is going to be some 0.8 volt. Okay. Now what will happen? Let us say this is your M2. Now this current is 10 micro, this current is 10 micro. Here you need 90 micro. So if this W by L ratio is 3, the W by L ratio of M2 will be 9 times 3, which is 27. 27 by 0.18, or I mean 27, W by L ratio will be equal to 27. Right? Now what will happen is that the VSD sat or the VD sat of 2 will be quite high because you're having 0.8 volt as your VGS. And even if your VTH is 0.4, you will end up with a VD sat of at least around 0.4 or 0.5 volt. Okay, roughly. Now this means that your signal swing is heavily limited, right? What is your Vout swing? Your Vout min, Vout max becomes VDD minus VD sat 2. So if you have 0.4 here, if this is 1.8 minus 0.4, you are ending up with only 1.4 volt as Vout max. Similarly, you have Vout min. Let's say this is around 0.3. So your swing, voltage swing is what? Max voltage swing is going to be only 1.1 volt. All right. Now, on the other hand, if you take this W by L ratio to be something like, let's say 10 or 15, right? And let us say this VSG comes down to some 0.5 something, right? Now your VD sat will now come to some 0.2 volt or something like that, right? In that case, what will happen? This will be 1.6 volt, okay? And then you'll get something like 1.3 volt or something like that, right? So these are the trade-offs that you have. For M3 and M4 really doesn't matter because you have enough amount of signal headroom. But then for M5 and M2 in this particular application, you have to choose a W by L ratio fairly. I mean, you can't go very high also, then you'll end up increasing the area so much. So engineering is all about trade-offs. Okay. In engineering, you don't have a closed form, especially in engineering design, you never have a closed form solution which tells you this is exactly the value that you must choose. Right. You use your engineering decision and take a call. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me.
So here only trade-off this area occupied by transistor only, right?
Yes.
Okay, so like this is very less in the beginning, right? Only we are increasing a little bit more. So does it matter that much, sir?
See, this is a small block, but yeah, we are talking about, let's say if it is 15 micro, if it is 0.18 micrometer, then 0.18 into 15 is how much? 0.18 into 15 will be 2.7 micro. This is fine, right? Now, if you want to increase your R naught and basically reduce your mismatch and so on, and let's say you go and put this as 1 micrometer, then this will become 15 micrometer. Now, these are all reasonable values. This is still fine. Now, if you take instead of 15, let's say if you take a W/L ratio of 100 for a small current like 10 microampere, right? It will work. It's not that it will not work, but then it's an overkill. So if you take 100, here you'll have 18 by 0.18, or if you take 1 micron, you'll have 100 micrometer as your transistor width. So that's a very insanely large amount of large area for a very small current, which is like 10 microampere. So there is a kind of a sense of what is acceptable and what is not. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. So these are all the different trade-offs. So basically, how will you decide the W/L of this one? So you put always for current mirrors. So let me give you some guidelines. Set the VDD always to 1.8 volt. I have seen students who, for their assignments or their projects, they'll be sweeping VDD also. Okay, from 0 to 3 volt, and they'll come up and say, okay, at 3 volt, I'm getting some nice results. So don't do that. VDD is fixed at 1.8 volt. That's it. All right. Secondly, for all current mirrors, okay, choose a L which is definitely greater than 0.18. All right. At least maybe some 3 times or 5 times, or maybe you can go to 1 micro or 2 micro. That's up to you. Okay. Now, current mirrors, again, another point in current mirrors is that all L's should be same. Okay. So for example, if you are having 1 micrometer here, this also should be 1 micrometer. Okay. If you're having 2 micrometer here, this also should be 2 micrometer. Don't scale the L's. This is what we have already seen in current mirrors. Okay. And only thing is you just need to scale the width, because in LTSpice you don't have the option to enter multipliers and so on. Just scale the width directly. Okay. Now, thirdly, we will also, the other thing is, don't go for make sure all voltages, just a minute, let me finish this. All voltages should be less than 1.8 volt. Okay, all voltages should be between 0 and 1.8. So don't come and say, okay, my bias voltage here has to be some 2 volts or 2.5 volt. Okay. Yeah, somebody had a question.
Yes, sir. In LTSpice, I found out multiplier.
Okay, is it working?
Yes, sir. It's when in the model file, we put the width and the length. In the last option, we have number of parallel devices. It's subscripted as M. That's the parallel.
That is, number of parallel devices will be your M. So if that option is there in LTSpice, then use multiplier. Okay, it's called as multiplier in Cadence. Here it is called as number of parallel devices. Okay, so please use that for current mirrors. Okay.
Sir, is it like L scaling?
Yeah. Sorry.
So is it like the increasing the value of L using multipliers?
No, multiplier means, see, this is 1 unit. Multiplier of 2 means you have 2 transistors. We looked at it in the current mirrors, right? So you have both drains shorted together, both gates shorted together, and both sources shorted together. This is multiplier of 2. Multiplier of means you have parallel devices. Basically, what you're doing is you're increasing the W, not L. Okay.
Okay, sir.
The total effective width is basically going to be M times width of the individual transistor.
Okay. Sir, increasing the value of W by 2 and using two multipliers, will it have same effect?
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. But for current mirrors, use multipliers. That's the professional proper way of doing things. Okay. All right. And also, yeah, so these are the important things. And also for M2, how will you find the W by L ratio of M2? What you do is you generate this table for both PMOS and NMOS. Okay. So in your, once you design this current mirror, you will know what is this VSG. Go to that particular VSG value, you generate the table for some arbitrary width and length tape, arbitrary width. It's easier to do it for 1 micro so that you can directly scale things, right? Do L for 0.18 micron. If you want, you can do it for other channel widths also, channel length also, that is fine. But you will see little bit of difference when you take this and plug it into a different channel width. Okay. But nevertheless, it will kind of give you a sense of how much you need to give. Okay. So for example, for this VSG, for 1 micrometer, let us say you are having some, 15 microamp of current. Now you need to go and scale it, scale the W by L ratio appropriately and use it. Now by doing all this, you have found out the W by L ratios for all the transistors. Now first you do a first run and you look at the gain. Now, in many cases, especially if you are going to use 0.18 micron here, your R0 will be poor. Okay. So what would have happened is in this gain expression, your GM might have been 0.45 millisiemens. I'm just taking an example. You can fix whatever value you want, multiplied by R01 parallel to R02. Now, your R01 parallel to R02 value might be very low. So which is why first, when you are designing an amplifier, always run a DC simulation. Okay. Do a DC operating point. Please don't simply run some sweeps. Okay. By merely running sweeps, you will not learn anything. Okay. So first try to understand what is happening in the circuit and do it. Okay. So by doing this, if you do a DC operating point, you will see in the DC operating point some GDS values. Okay. GDS is nothing but 1 by R0 value. Find out, calculate the R0. How much R0 are you having? How much GM are you having? And are you falling short of your gain? And in your split up of gain between GM and R0, which one is satisfying and which one is not satisfying? Okay. Now, if let us say your R0 is not satisfying the required amount, you need to go and increase your R0. So again, here you have two R0s. For example, let us say the PMOS is having a 2 micron length. It will have a much higher R0. And your R0 per R01 will be basically limiting your gain, right? So you need to go and do what? You need to go and scale the L and W for fixed, or rather with fixed W by L ratio. Okay. So for example, your R02 is pretty good, right? So for 0.45, how much R0 do you need? 10 divided by 0.45. You will need a R0 of around 22K, right? You will need 22K you need. Let us say your R02 is some, 40K and your R01, let us say, is some 5K. Now, obviously, you need to go and improve this R01, right? Now, how will you improve? Do this by increasing the channel length of your NMOS transistor here. Okay. So by doing that, you'll be, of course, there will be a few iterations and you will be able to design. Okay. So I will give maybe some 2-3 design problems. You can pick any one of the design problems and you can solve it and submit it. I'll give you 2 weeks time. This is important for you to kind of learn how to design. Okay. Any doubts, any questions? It'll all look very nice when I'm explaining on paper. But when you actually start simulating, that is when you will run into difficulty. I'm telling you, analog design initially is not very easy. But once you get the hang of it, it becomes very simple. Okay, so that learning curve is there, which is why I want to, which is why I have kept 40% as the internal marks, where you do all these different assignments and process. And in the past batch of students, I've always told that, It is through these assignments and projects that they have actually learned the subject. Okay, so take them seriously. Don't start 2 days before the deadline. In that case, you will not be able to learn anything and you will not be able to get anything to work. Okay, so don't copy. It's an individual effort. Learn on your own. That is the best way to learn. You will make mistakes. You can discuss among yourselves. That is fine. But by doing mistakes, but by having difficulty and trying to find out what is the problem, going to the book, going to the lecture notes, trying to understand things, that is how you will actually learn how to do design. And once you learn how to do design, it sticks with you for the rest of your life. Okay. All right. Now with this, let me go to cascodes. That is what I actually wanted to start off with. Now we have already seen cascodes, right, in the context of current mirrors. Now in the case of amplifiers also, we can use cascodes. So what do we mean by using cascodes? So if you take a common source amplifier, first let me give you the motivation or the reason why we are using cascode. Okay, if you take a simple common source amplifier like this, let's say this is M1 and M2, we saw the gain value is given by GM times GM1 times R01 parallel to R02, right? Now the problem here is that the gain is kind of limited by this factor. Okay. Now, if you look at this particular thing, if you increase current, if ID is increased for, let's say, same VGS, you keep the VGS the same, you just scale the W by L ratios. Now current will increase. If you do that, what will happen? GM is given by, root of, in fact, 2ID by VGS minus VTH. So if you keep VGS minus VTH, GM is basically proportional to ID. If you keep the VGS constant, right? Now for R0, what is the case? R0 is inversely proportional to ID. So if you just scale the W by L ratio, keeping the VGS constant, scaling W by L ratio, you will increase GM and you will reduce R0 by the same quantity. So in other words, if you do this, your gain will remain the same. All right. And what will happen to your bandwidth? Your bandwidth is basically, let's say, R01 parallel to 1 over R01 parallel to R02 times CL, the whole inverse, right? So your R0 goes down and therefore your bandwidth will increase. So increasing current will increase your bandwidth. That's it. Okay. But it will not increase your gain. Now, how do you actually increase the gain? You have to kind of, there is what is called as the GM by ID ratio. So there is a new technique which has been popular over the last probably roughly 10 to 15 years, not more than that. What is called as the GM by ID design technique. Okay. Now, what is GM by ID design technique? Basically, if you look at this factor, GM by ID, if you write the expression, it's, let's say, mu n C ox W over L, VGS minus VTH is one of the expressions of GM. And this is, let's say, mu n C ox by 2 W over L, VGS minus VTH, the whole squared. I'm just taking this square law equation. Now, this turns out to be what? 2 by VGS minus VTH. Okay. Now, this parameter GM by ID, this is independent of W by L ratio. Okay, this is a very important factor. And if you plot the GM by ID ratio, I would like you to do that as well. If you plot GM by ID ratio versus VGS, because in the table you already have GM, ID, and VGS, you can plot this. You will see something like this. Okay, something like this. So it kind of peaks in the subthreshold region. Okay, and as you keep increasing the VGS, it keeps dropping. All right. So this GM by ID is also called as the transconductance efficiency. That is, it says for a given amount of current, how much transconductance do you get out of it? Okay, GM by ID is independent of W by L. GM by ID is dependent on VGS only. Now, what you can do is you can plot this GM by ID. In fact, there are different ways to design. Even this common source amplifier can be designed using that. So, for example, you have GM into R01 parallel to R02. This basically turns out to be what? This, if you write this thing, it basically gain becomes proportional to the GM by ID ratio. All right. So you can, all you can do is you can go to this one, say, okay, I want to be at this particular point. This is the GM by ID that I want, and then go and do the rest of the things. Okay. So, or if you think that the gain is not sufficient, you move the point more closer to the peak GM by ID ratio point, and that becomes the maximum. You cannot go beyond that. All right. So this is another thing. There is some document on GM by ID design techniques. I will share that in the Moodle page. You can go through it. So that's another. Everybody has their own style of design. There are people who really swear by this GM by ID design methodology. There are other people who use this, the kind of method that I told you about, using a lookup table and doing a design. Okay, whatever it is, you can use. Okay, for example, you can say, okay, typically max GM by ID will be around 14 or something. Of course, it differs from technology to technology. So you go and do what? You look at, let's say, this is the VGS that I want to choose, and this is the GM by ID I'm getting. Now here I will, this is the, so with this I'm going to fix my VGS. I know this is the ratio. Now with this I will just, throw in some W by L ratio so that my current is met. And then I will increase L till I get the required gain. That is another way to design. Okay. Now in all these things, what is happening is there is a fundamental limit. You can see that, the GM by ID kind of tells you there is a peak value. Beyond that, you cannot go for a simple common source amplifier like this. Now, if you really want to increase the gain even further, right? We saw that by increasing GM, you can only do to a certain extent by scaling, by changing VGS, right? If you change W by L ratio, the gain will remain constant, right? Because of this particular thing. Now, how do you increase? You have to only deal with this R out factor, okay? Now, how can you increase the R out? We know how to increase R out in a current mirror, which is by cascoding. So what I can do is basically to say, okay, this is my M1. I'm going to cascode my M1, okay? And the same way I have my M2, I'm going to cascode my M2, okay? So this is VB1, this is VB2, this is VB3. We know how to generate biases for all of them. We have already learned about current mirrors, right? Let us say this is M1, M2, M3, and M4. Okay, this is nothing but basically you have a current source and you have cascoding transistor like this. Okay, now for this particular circuit, how can you write the R out expression? If you assume an ideal current source, R out basically becomes R01 plus R02 plus GM2 R02 times R01. Now, if this current source is implemented in this way, what will be the R out here? This is your output node. So you look down and you look up, put both in parallel. If you look down, what do you see? You see R01 parallel plus R02 plus GM2 R02 R01. This whole thing is going to be in parallel with GM R03 plus R04 plus GM3. That is your cascoding transistor R03 times R04. Now this becomes your R out expression. Now obviously because of this multiplying factor GM-R0, your output impedance is going to be much higher. So what is going to be your gain? We know how to write gain, which is the effective transconductance. The effective transconductance here is only GM1 times R out. So for the same amount of current, you can have a much higher gain by cascoding. All right. Now, what is the penalty? What do you think is the penalty here?
Swing voltage.
Headroom.
Swing, right? Yeah, penalty is basically, what are the penalties that you have? First of all is headroom or voltage swing, right? So in that given 1.8 volt, you need to have 4 transistors to be in saturation. So which means that minimum of 4 VD-sats need to be there. So the headroom is basically going to be VDD minus VD-sat of 4 minus VD-sat of 3 minus VD-sat of 2 minus VD-sat of 1. All right. Now, secondly, what happens to your bandwidth? Bandwidth becomes 1 by 2 pi R out CL. So if you have increased your R out, what will happen to your bandwidth? Your bandwidth will basically go down, right? So which is why they say for a first order system, like, you know, there is a gain bandwidth trade-off, or rather the gain bandwidth product remains constant, right? Your gain has increased, but your bandwidth has reduced by the same factor. All right. So this is what is called as a telescopic cascode. Okay. Why is it called as a telescopic cascode? It's like a telescope, one transistor stacked one on top of each other. And how does it actually work? So basically, you can think of it as, let's say there is some input signal, right? Now this, let's say there is some delta V input signal like this. Now M1 acts as a common source and M2 acts as a common gate. Okay, so this can be thought of as a common source, common gate pair. Now this common source has a gain of GM1 multiplied by the impedance seen at this node. Now what is the impedance seen at this node? Looking down you see R01, looking up you see 1 over GM2. 1 over GM2 will dominate. So you can kind of write this as delta V times GM1 divided by GM2. Now this will be in the opposite polarity, right? Now M2 acts as a common gate amplifier. So this quantity is multiplied by the common gate gain, which is nothing but GM2 times R out. And therefore, this is going to be of the same polarity, which is of course inverse of what you have at the input. And the value is going to be delta V times GM1 times GM2 gets cancelled out, total R out. M3 and M4 are literally nothing but a current source, nothing else. Okay. So this is the way that it actually works. So cascode improves your output impedance, it increases your gain, while at the same time you pay the penalty of having lower headroom and so on. But there is also one more advantage to cascodes. Okay. Now if you take a cascode and let us say you have some disturbance here of some delta V. Okay. Now what happens is that this at this particular node, let's call this node as X, the voltage at this node X will not swing by the same amount. All right, it will swing by a much lesser amount, and that is because of you have basically it can be thought of as you have an R0 and the total impedance here is R01 parallel to 1 over GM2. This is R02. So the swing at this particular point is 1 over GM2 plus let's say GMB2. So the swing at this point, okay, can be delta V, V prime, can be taken as delta V times 1 by GM plus GMB parallel to R01 divided by 1 by GM plus GMB parallel to R01 plus R02. Okay. Now obviously 1 by GM will dominate and therefore the swing here will be much smaller. Okay. So in other words, what this is basically doing, it is shielding M1. this transistor M2 is actually shielding your transistor M1. So that's another major advantage of cascode amplifiers. Now, let me just briefly talk about the frequency response. I already told you about the output pole, which is the major one. Now, let us say you just have some current source, and this is M2, and let's say this is going to be M1. Now we know that there is a CGS here, right? Let us say this is driven by some input. Let's call it as RS. Now here what you'll have CGS here. So let me use a different color for all the capacitors. So you have CGS1. Now here what will you have? You'll have CDB1 plus CSB2. Okay, let's assume that this is grounded, right? And not only that, you will have CGS2 here, you'll have CGD2 here, you'll have CDB2 here, right? And here also you'll have CGD, sorry, 1. Okay. Now what happens is that now in addition, you'll also have the load capacitance here. Now we already saw this, let's call this node as A, and let's call this node as X, and let's not call this node as Y. Okay, so omega PA is basically what we have already seen, right? Which is 1 by the total R out multiplied by CL plus whatever CDB2 and other things which are there, which will get absorbed. Now, what about this node? You have two other nodes at which you have capacitances, right? Now, if you look at this node omega px, the impedance seen at this node is 1 by GM2 plus GMB2. Okay, so this can be written as 1 by GM2 plus GMB2 multiplied by what is the capacitance? Of course, it's parallel to R01, but let me just approximate it to be only 1 by GM2 plus GMB2. What is the total node at this total capacitance at this particular node? You have this CDB1 plus CSB2 plus this is also to an AC ground, right? So you have CGS2, right? And then you have CGD1. Now the CGD1, it will have Miller effect, right? So here you will have CGD1 multiplied by 1 minus the gain of this transistor M1. And here you will have CGD multiplied by 1 minus 1 by A, correct? Now here what will happen is that because of the, or rather I think A, yeah. So what will happen is the gain here, this A here is going to be GM1 divided by GM2. We already saw that in the previous slide, right? Because the impedance is this much. Now if both of them are kind of, GMs are kind of close by, right? So you will have almost equal to 1. So I think it is 1 plus because, yeah, you can just check that out. Yeah, it is the negative gain. So basically it becomes 1 plus, right? So you will get approximately 2 times CGD here. So this can also be written as, GM2 plus GMB2 divided by all this capacitors, the sum of capacitors. All right. Now, what about the omega Py, which is at the input? At the input, what do you have? You have Rs, right? So it can be written as Rs times CGS1 plus 1 plus GM1 by GM2 times CGD1, which is approximately again CGD 2 times CGD. So if you look at this cascode amplifier, you have, of course, you have an input. If you look at this other normal amplifier, you will have some pole at the input and some pole at the output. Okay, you'll have only 2 poles, and typically if RS is slower, the output pole will dominate. Here you have 3 poles, and because of this intermediate node also, which is having some capacitances, right? So typically this will be the dominant pole, and the other two will be at higher frequencies. Okay. Now, lastly, I'll just quickly talk about noise and conclude. For noise, what do you see here? So basically, let us say you have let's say some total resistance is there, right? Resistance, or even you can put current mirror, whatever it is. So the important thing is this noise of M2, right? If you look at the noise current of M2, 4 kT gamma GM2, if you, here again you have this very interesting phenomenon. What is that phenomenon? This current, when it comes here, it is going to see a voltage current division, right? Bottom you have R0 1. Looking up, you have 1 by GM2. Now, typically, if you design it, especially at these older technology nodes, 1 by GM2 is much smaller than R0 1. So what will happen is that all the current, most of the current will just basically go back into the transistor M2. You understood? Because the other side impedance is quite high. So basically, as a result of it, the cascoding transistor does not contribute much to the noise, to the output noise, or even for that matter, the input referred noise, to the noise at the output, or for that matter, input. Is it clear? You have this noise current source, M2 has 4 kT gamma GM2, but the thing is, at this particular node, which we keep calling as X, the impedance is lower on the M2 side, and therefore the current keeps circulating like how I have drawn. Similar thing we saw even in common gate amplifier, right? So the current gets circulated inside, and therefore M2 does not contribute to noise in a major way. Only M1 and whatever current source you're putting on the top will contribute. Now, of course, this thing will change at, let's say, some higher frequencies. You'll start having, let's say you have some net effective capacitance at this node. So at high frequencies, CX starts to dominate the impedance at the point X. Now, what will happen as frequency increases, the impedance of CX becomes lower. So then what will happen is M2 starts contributing to, or rather I should say, the noise of M2 starts appearing at the output. Okay. So this is a very important concept. So keep in mind, because when we do all the other op-amp designs, these things come into the picture. These are all very fundamental things that we are learning, which we'll directly apply when we do the op-amp design. Any doubts, any questions?
Sir?
Yeah.
So this higher frequency is at like what range? Like above 100 megahertz or something of that sort? Or
see, it depends on how much is the CX, what are the relative values? What is the value of R0, what is the value of 1 over GM2, and what is the, how much capacitance is there, right? It is all relative to that. So it's difficult to say exactly at what. Now, only thing we realize is that as you keep increasing the frequency, it's not like, suddenly at one frequency it decides to show up. It's just that as you keep increasing the frequency, the contribution of M2 starts going up, okay? And it might come to a point where it is fairly significant enough. At what point does it become significant enough? It depends on the relative values of R0 and 1 over GM2. And CX, obviously. Okay?
okay, sir.
All right. Okay, so thanks everyone. Have a nice day. we'll continue. And I mentioned yesterday, we will have the makeup quiz, which is purely voluntary. If you want to take it, you can take it between 4:30 and 5 on Monday evening. Okay. All right. So same portion, same syllabus. We will have it on Moodle. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.